Gray here, and today on Grey Area we are so excited to introduce to you a Berlin-based singer, songwriter and producer who has gained so much traction as of late due to her striking, euphoric shows and even being listed in Pete Tong's Future Stars of 2022. It's Joplyn!
Hey, what's up? How are you? Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming on the show. Now, let's just dive straight into it and let's go from the very beginning of your story because I'm dying to hear about it, to be completely honest. When and why...
I'm an open book.
You're what, sorry?
I just said I'm an open book. Ask me anything.
Amazing. Anything? Okay.
Uh-oh. I've not said that. I'm scared.
Famous
no, sorry.
Words.
I don't want to...
So when and why did you start writing and producing music?
I mean, this always sounds a little extreme when I say it, but I did start writing, I started with writing poetry, and that was at a very young age. I think I was 5 or 6. But like I said, those poems that I was writing, it was, we learned about it in school. I was just jotting down thoughts. And I was just having fun. Most of them were in German in the beginning because that's my mother tongue. And then later I switched to English. And then I also got to experience, the typical Asian upbringing. I was sent to piano lessons also at the age of 5. And I think at around 8 or 9 years old, I combined the two. I just had this, I was seeing so many other artists getting inspired on the radio or on YouTube or wherever, and I just really wanted to do the same. And so I took, those two building blocks and kind of wrote my own songs with those two things that I was already doing. The first songs I ever wrote, they were obviously very abstract. They were basically poems turned into melody with some, with 3 notes accompanying them on the piano. But then I really got into it. I got into song structure. I started writing, real piano ballads that were very pop influenced. I was a huge Lady Gaga fan during that time. So I was I think that was huge. That was a huge inspiration. That was actually my first concert ever in Berlin. Wow. I saw her live, I think when I was 8 or 9, which was
oh my gosh.
the pinnacle of her career. She had this huge castle on stage, dressed up as a monster. There were these creatures carrying her around. It was still to this day the best, the craziest show I've ever been to. And I think that really also kickstarted everything. But I was still doing it on the side. And then I think who really inspired me was Lorde. When she came, onto the scene with Royals, because she was so young too. And that was really, I also then saw her live here in Berlin. I have a diary entry that I wrote after that night. And it's I think that was a turning page almost for me. Because after that I was I don't care what anyone tells me. I want to do music. I don't care about school anymore. Let me just write my songs. And yeah, so I really got into it. And then I also discovered GarageBand on my computer because it's, pre-installed. Yeah. So I started recording, and then I asked my parents for a little MIDI keyboard just so I could, play some music in there. And then the electronic influence really also came, I think, through growing up in Berlin. So, here in the city, you walk down the streets and you just hear techno or house music or whatever, really pumping out of, each pore of the city. So I think that definitely then impacted the way I started looking at music. And I'm still just learning. I'm still just experimenting, but that's kind of how I started and what I still do now.
So you definitely spoke a lot about your early influences and what inspired you, but obviously, you're still producing and you're still creating, and as a creative, we kind of need to be inspired to keep creating and kind of keep that fire burning. So what for you now is kind of your biggest inspiration, whether that be a person or a place or a thing or anything?
I always say 2 things. I'm very, very inspired by places, which definitely helps that part of this job. Such a huge part of this job is just traveling a lot. So this year has really been the first year, because COVID, where I really got to see so many new places and got to travel around so much, and that was definitely like a huge inspire for me. Like I just even now the sad thing is that I don't really have the time that I had before to let out all this inspiration, just because I'm always on the road. But nowadays I'm like writing songs even on stage, just to, just because that's such a special like headspace to be in, such a
Yeah.
special moment, such a special place, like to literally see the people in front of you, like hear your music on loudspeakers, and I like jam on stage, and sometimes songs really solidify out of that. So I have like now for the next album already like 3 4 songs that I just made randomly while I was performing. And the second thing that really inspires me is one last thing about the places thing I just remembered. I actually went to Ibiza beginning of this year to make my second album, and the reason for that was also to escape the Berlin winter, but officially to get some new inspiration, because as a creative, like you said, like it's not very proportionate to hours put in. The more hours you put in, the better the outcome is. I feel like most good, really awesome songs are written within like 5 minutes, and that's just because there's a spark, there's an inspiration, there's something in the air. And I feel like if you have, like, I always try to put myself in those moments and in those situations, and that's why I like actively try to hunt down new places just to get into that vibe. So that was the story behind the album. But the other thing that really inspires me is my dreams, actually, which sounds a little cheesy,
No, it doesn't.
but I
Dreams are like a
it
portal to
does.
another world.
I know.
Yes.
I'm such a vivid dreamer, and I also lucid dream a lot, and so many just like I dream so visually that so many songs are just me describing my dreams, because it's like a completely different world, and like absurd like things that no one would ever like in their conscious awake mind even think of. And one of the songs off the album is actually like I remember I was in a dream. I was in my apartment, and then I saw this little door in a corner, and I was walking through it, and all of a sudden I was kind of like in my own subconscious. Like it was so weird. It was like a gallery almost, and there were like pictures on the wall of people that I hadn't talked to in ages, or like scribbles on the wall, and like liquids of like, memories, like just like everything like mixed together. And I was like walking around it, almost looking at it like I was in like an exhibition. And that was so weird, and so it resonated with me so much that like I woke up and I wrote just like on my notes app, like I see stains of love, writings on the wall, and like and I basically wrote the chorus to my song Stains. So yeah, that's I think the two main inspirations that I have, places and dreams, which is kind of the same thing also.
Yeah, in a weird way, it's like real life, and then your own personal real life in a way, like a world that no one else can see other than you. And I think that's kind of what helps you create such an original and unique sound. Because
Yeah.
my next question leading on to then was going to be, how would you describe your own development as an artist? Because coming from being inspired by the likes of Lady Gaga and Lorde to the sound that you have now is kind of worlds apart.
Definitely.
So how would
Um,
yeah.
how would I describe finding my sound?
Yeah.
Like how that happened?
Mm.
Okay. I think it was a lot of partying when growing up in Berlin,
Amazing.
like, you go to clubs at a pretty young age. You see all of these, like, you see just the power that I feel like what's so beautiful about club music specifically is how uniting it can be. Like, I always say, like techno clubs are I feel the safest and like the calmest. I feel like those are one of the calmest environments in the world. Not per se because everyone's like in their zen, everything's calm, but everything is just there. It's just filled with love, and in that whole energy and that aggression in the music, there's still like just I feel like so much appreciation for just being in this moment together and dancing together. I remember like if you compare that to hip hop clubs, I feel like there was always like people getting in fights, it was like definitely like a different vibe, which is also cool, but I think that's kind of the beauty of electronic music. And that resonated with me. And then I started really getting into, I think Caribou was a big one that I first,
Love
got into. And there's so many artists or more extreme ones like Oliver Huntemann. There's so many Germans also in this scene. Then Booker Shade, they were they were one of the first ones to ever approach me about a collaboration. They're obviously, legends in that space. And they are my mentors still, and they've kind of guided me along the way. And I think it was just, actively being there, celebrating the music and getting inspired by other artists, and also just, like I said, really resonating with the whole feeling of that specific genre.
That's beautiful. And now not only are you clearly very passionate about music and what you do, but you're also very passionate about bringing more women into the world of music production. Why do you personally think that there are less women than men in this role, having lived and breathed it yourself? And how do you think that more women could become inspired to consider this as a career path?
I think the reason that I think only 2% of all producers are women is, I know it's
That's
kind of
crazy.
sad. I know. But we're working,
Yes.
towards their number. That's the spirit. I think it's such a technical job, and, technical jobs in general, I feel like get attributed a lot to men. And I think that's also what makes it very intimidating, like for women to download Ableton or pick up a controller or whatever. I think what we also lack is just representation. Like if you look at the lineups, if you look at the producers, if you look at any all the rosters, it's all men. And I can physically, I see it every time I play a gig. I'm always the only girl at the artist dinner. I obviously, as a woman, you tend to get belittled a lot. People are yeah, that's cute that you're DJing now, but who's the man behind you? Who's really making all the music?
Yeah.
Or you get sexualized a lot.
Yeah.
You aren't taken seriously. It's definitely hard. It's an uphill battle. And I feel like even women, in this space, I feel like we're so often taught to compete against each other. And that is still so ingrained that even when I was looking, I remember that was 2 years ago when I just started out, I was looking specifically for female remixers for my album. But I was super, my numbers weren't up there at all. I just started. I was still a super small artist. And so many women were, they passed. And it's obviously it's also it's not only because of the numbers. Maybe they didn't resonate with it, with the music, but it felt a little bit it was so hard, out of that list of only 20 women that I even found that are music producers, to then really get together for I think it's always a cool thing, two girls collaborating on something.
Yeah.
And it was just I feel we have to learn to kind of lift each other up, make diversity a priority. If you're in that position, play the lineups where there's a higher quota of women. Work with the agencies that represent more women. Really, advocate for it. And I think what's the most important thing also is just representation. Like I said, people like Lady Gaga and Lorde, they're basically the reasons I first started getting into music, and that was because I saw a part of myself in them. And that's why I always say, even if you don't want anything to do with it as a woman, if you're out there doing your own shit, stuff, and I don't know if I can swear,
It's fine.
doing whatever you do, okay, doing your own shit, and really just showing your face out there, being your, having a voice, and if just one little girl sees that and sees themselves in you, you're already working towards the movement of getting more women into it. So I think representation is very big. I think safe spaces are very important, really no judgment, just uplifting each other, empowering each other. There's this super cool now WhatsApp group. I don't know if I can talk about it. Are you in there? Probably, huh?
No, I'd love to be in it.
Okay, I'll send you the link. It's like a secret society almost. It's all women and electronic music that work in electronic music are in there, and it's the craziest group. Whenever I open up my WhatsApp, it's 500 unread messages, but it's like now, it's so cool to be in a group like that because we're all just champion, like, like cheering each other on and like sending cool stuff, helping each other out. Like it's such a positive environment and little world. And I feel like little things like that have really showed me and like have me feel like I'm supported, and have really showed me that there is that we're now coming together more and more and really working towards making this an important goal. And I'm working with Ableton, I'm working with Spotify, giving like production workshops just to make everything like a little more accessible, a little less intimidating. But like I said, I think the most important thing is just doing what you do anyway, and that's like always inevitably going to inspire people.
That's amazing, and I think it really takes people like yourself to kind of make that world accessible to other women, because like you say, I think women get intimidated by it almost, and doing things like the workshop, that's incredible. I think it shows like, hey, look, like I can do this, I can show you how, like it's really not this big scary thing that's dominated by men.
That's why I think it's hard in general, because I feel like the creative process is such a mysterious thing if you've never been creative. Like it's kept behind closed doors so much. Like you get presented with this perfect piece of music on like a golden platter, and like you never really see what went on, behind it, or like how many people were actually working on that, because usually it's a lot more people than you expect. So I think just like democratizing that whole process and concept is like a very dear to my heart, definitely.
And you're doing an amazing job, so keep it up. And now
Thank you. So are you.
Thank you. Now, earlier you mentioned that you spent some time in Ibiza, hence the birth of your second album, Sant Jordi, which is incredible. But you also spent some time with other big names in the industry out there. Cue a photo of you and Damian Lazarus being super cute at High. There
are so many photos of me and Damian there.
I love it. It's amazing. What does it mean for you to be making a debut on Crosstown Rebels with We Will Forgive Ourselves?
Oh my God, I remember that was last year, or like beginning of this year, I think, like when things had still, like this year has been crazy.
Yeah.
Let me preface this by saying this. Like last year I played, I think, 5 shows in general, in total. And like this year I played 50 or 60. So like times 10.
Yeah.
And that was, like I said, at the beginning when this whole mayhem of shows and everything hadn't happened yet. So it felt like, we met at Watergate, which is my home here in Berlin, a club here in Berlin. And because he was throwing his Crosstown Rebels night in Berlin, and he was asking for like a local DJ opening act. And then because, I'm so close with the Watergate family, they're like, let's just do Joplyn. And then he was so impressed by my set or something that like, I remember I said goodbye. I remember that like, because that was one of my first gigs, I was still a little starstruck. I was like, whoa, this is Damian Lazarus. At the Artist Center, like I was like, freaking out. And then we said goodbye. And then like 2 weeks later, I get a WhatsApp from him. He's like, I have to talk to you. Like, call me in 10 minutes. And I'm like, okay, what's happening now? And then like we just got to talking. Oh my God, yes. But also the quickness, because I was like, how do I prepare? Like it was such hell. And then turned out he didn't want anything bad. Like I was like, is he gonna call me to tell me that my gig was so bad that like he's like, I was like, all these thoughts were rushing through my head. And then he was like, yeah, I really love what you do. I want you to do a song on Crosstown. And I was like, okay. So I ran into the studio, like literally ran. I mean, I do have a home studio, so I ran like 3 steps to my studio, but it still counts. And then I made We Will Forgive Ourselves, which was already an idea I had floating around anyway, but I hadn't solidified it yet because I hadn't had the inspiration, that spark that we were talking about. Yeah. And that really inspired that. And the whole thing has just been so magical. I mean, he's been such a supporter. I now played, my first little Ibiza residency with him Saturdays with Black Coffee in Damian's room in the club room. And I don't know, he's just taken me under his wing, and I'm so grateful. And I mean, there are some new things that we're working on, potentially. And, and yes. it's been amazing. And it's also like through this whole year of like every weekend being somewhere else, it was almost like a little routine, felt a little bit like homecoming because I played there every month once. So every time I went there, it was like, okay, I'm still flying somewhere, like this is still stressful and crazy, but it
Yeah.
feels a little bit more grounded than the other shows.
Almost like a little bit of stability in a very hectic life.
Exactly, exactly. And that's exactly what you need.
Now, I think the lyrics in all of your songs are so beautiful, and they really demonstrate not only your talent, but also your depth and your intelligence. And We Will Forgive Ourselves comes with a poignant message. Would you be able to explain a little bit about the meaning of this release?
We will forgive ourselves. It feels so long ago. Wait, let me think of the lyrics when I'm singing. Um, I think we will forgive ourselves is actually my way of kind of dealing with, this very hedonistic, very excessive side of, this culture, this genre that I'm in, within techno, within house, within club music. Like there is this dark side that no one really talks about, which I feel like is just, drugs and like
Yeah, for sure.
it can be a very toxic place too, even though like with all its beauty. And I think that was my way of kind of like in my mind, marrying the two ideas that it can be toxic and it can be, this dark place. But at the end of the day, it is uniting. We're on this, it has this, we're on this together feeling. And there's so much support in there that at the end of the day, we will forgive ourselves for, all the parties, all the things that we did. And I mean, you can of course take this whole idea and, project it even on a wider scope, being like, we'll forgive ourselves in general in this world for all the things that are going wrong. And yeah, I think it is a very melancholic song, but I did want it to have like a hopeful message at the end, and I did want it to be positive and uplifting. And there's something, because it is very choral, it feels almost like we're in a church sometimes when I play it. And it's those moments on the dance floor that I live for. And I think because I had the melody before I had the lyrics, so I was just trying to also write lyrics that kind of capture this feeling that this melody had already evoked in me anyway. So yeah, that's how I came up with the lyrics for that song.
I love that, and I kind of like the ambiguity. Like, obviously that song has the meaning to you, but the listener can kind of take the lyrics and make it meaningful for them as well, Like,
Yeah,
think
exactly. That's I think
really
in
the song like
general,
that.
exactly. It's the beauty of music or art, I think, that like you can have
Exactly.
your own interpretation, but
Yeah.
anyone can take this piece of whatever, like substance, and mold it into their own perception of the world. And like it can be something so meaningful to them that you didn't even at all intend for it to be in the first place.
Now, something more meaningful to you, let's talk about Job, a character and extension of yourself, which underpins your album Sant Giorgio too. And I'm absolutely in awe of this story. I read it earlier, and I would love for you to tell our listeners about it too.
Okay, I was already hinting at it. I was talking about stains.
Yes.
Because I was like, do I go on this whole tangent with Job or like,
It
do
was
I
already
not?
coming. Don't worry. I had it in there already.
Yeah, Job is my girl. She came from this dream that I was talking about, this very visual dream about where I was in my subconscious. And I just remember having this finished song in my hands then and being like, the song, because it stems from a dream, like it can't not have like a visual side to it. Like there has to be a visual explanation to it. It can't be just the song, because I mean the lyrics are pretty clear, but then in my head I feel like things are always make a lot more sense than they do to the average person just casually listening. So I was like, okay, how do I transport this dream that I had into like the visual space? And that was my first time ever working with visuals or anything, or at least animations. And I was like, I really want it to be animated because it is such a fantastic and just like fantasy world. that I can't have it be like a camera thing because first of all, it was a cost thing. Like I can't, make all these visual effects and everything and film, like work with real footage here. I wanted it to be, I love drawing and I wanted it to be, in that format. So what I did was I drew like a bunch of sketches from the stream that I had about this room where I was in. And I then also filmed like reference videos where I was, yeah, for example, in that specific loop, I always call them loop because they loop, obviously. I'm like walking around and like, I don't know, touching the walls, exactly what I did in my dream and like looking around. So I filmed a video of me doing exactly that with the hairstyle, like with the two space buns that I always have and the two braids and the two dots. And I was just like shopping it around to friends and, just people that I knew here in Berlin, being like, would you be able to like help me bring this vision to life? And then a friend of mine, Amy, she's like, yeah, that sounds super cool. Like I'm super into it. She was, because I feel like you can't nowadays, because there's so many people that need animations, like there's just such a huge demand, you can't really buy those people anymore. Like, of course, if you have like a huge check waving, yes. But like I didn't have that. So it's like I really need to get someone who just sees the vision and is as passionate about me, about really like, creating this project together. And that's, Amy was super passionate about it. After the first meeting, like we were just like brainstorming, like we opened up a little WhatsApp group and we were sending ideas, like it was crazy. And then we really worked on this first video together and we finished out within like 2-3 days. I mean, at the beginning, it was also like a whole day of just talking about the style, like the animation style, like how do we want Job to be portrayed. And yeah, but then we were really quick and I just kept on sending reference videos, kept on sending like sketches and vision boards for all the other songs. And we just made the whole album that way. And then I had all these loops before I had Job's name, and that really just came from lots of people call me Job, and then I was like, why not call her Job? Because I like that it's like androgynous. I like that it can, again, like JOP. It could be whatever you want it to be. Like I didn't want to tell anyone what it wasn't, like what the acronym stands for. A bunch of like I have different ideas, of course, but at the end of the day, like you can decide. And it was really just cool because then like I now have them on Spotify as my canvas. I'm thinking of maybe doing possibly like an NFT thing with them. Like you can take this thing and like turn it into so many different mediums again. And like I, for the first time ever, actually played a live show here in Berlin at Cantina am Berghain the other day, and I projected, like it wasn't synced at all to the music, but I just projected Job onto onto the stage while I was playing. And it looked so cool because it was really like my own world, It was also my first headline show that I would ever played here in Berlin. So it was like a special little moment. And it was great to have Job up on stage there with me, dancing with me. And it just, I don't know, it felt, because I see myself as such a like audio visual artist. Like I feel like I don't want to be confined to just audio. That's like my first little tippy toe steps into that whole world of like visual art. And yeah, that's how Job came to be.
It's amazing. And you kind of actually already answered my question, definitely about this music video, because I feel I've watched a few of your others and there is so much, I want to say there's so much power, depth, and almost grace in your videos and like with your performance. Like you really kind of just, there's so much power like from you, like a natural sense of power. Like you're not really doing anything, like it's just from within you. And all of your videos are so, that was true. And it's so, they're all very individually striking, including the cartoon of Stains, which I thought was amazing.
They're all individually crazy.
Yeah, they're amazing. I love them. And they all deserve to blow up and get millions of views. Clearly, like from what you just said, you had a lot of creative control over the Stains music video, but over your other ones, were all those aesthetics down to you as well?
Are you talking about the other Job videos or just in general, like music videos
Just in
that are out
general,
there?
yeah.
I'm a big control freak, which is also like, I think I make my life a lot harder than it could be. But I do like for every video, because I do like I always said back when I was still like in the beginning of making music, and my parents were like, "Get a real job." I always said, I always said because I've been editing videos like my whole life. Like it started, I think, also around when I was 8, 9 on Final Cut, and just from watching YouTube's like skits and everything, I was just doing my own stuff, and that is like a legit job nowadays. Like everyone needs an editor. So
Yeah,
I
you're
was always telling
clever.
my mom like exactly like if the music thing doesn't work out, I'll just do that. Like I'm good at that. Like I've had multiple people tell me, like directors and stuff that it looks good what I do. So I told my mom like I can do this if everything else fails, and that's kind of my was always my way of like calming her down. So that was just a little side anecdote. But I do like most of the music videos. I'm the one editing them. I'm the one filming them. Mind Actress was the first one that was like a year or two ago where I really did everything, like down to styling. I did all the casting. I did all the location scouting. I did obviously all the editing. I couldn't film myself because I love being behind the camera too. Like I love photography too. But I then got a friend of mine here from Berlin, Julia Klotz, to like film, like
Yeah.
be the one, be the camera woman. And yeah, it was just that was like took me probably all in all like a month just of work. But it was so fulfilling to me. And like the other videos that I have, like I do work with directors, but then I put my foot down a lot because I never wanted to be, not me. I always wanted to be
Yeah.
authentic. And I have gotten into a couple fights about that too because they're like, yeah, but we really like this shot, but I'm like,
That's
no, we're not
amazing.
doing this shot. And it's like, I'm definitely not an easy artist to work with, I think, just because I always have like my idea of how I want it. But I love collaborating too. And yeah, it's just become I think it's about building like this world where people can immerse themselves in. And the world, obviously, the foundation of the world is my music, is my songs. But, this world is four-dimensional. There's, so many other parts of this world that aren't my music. And that can also be my styling just in general, or it can be just the videos I take, or how exactly I angle a camera when I take photos, or the look I give into the camera. Like, I feel like it's this, like, all-encompassing thing. And I really love expressing myself in any way possible within that realm.
Well, that's beautiful to hear because I was watching the videos and I was wondering, I was like, wow, is this all from you or is this someone else's vision? And it's like, it's so refreshing to hear that that all came from you. And, it's that's your brand, that's your style, and it's incredible. Um,
Thank you.
Now
It
going
means
back,
a lot.
no, it's amazing. You're welcome. So going back to Stains,
Hmm.
I have to say, when listening to this track, I almost felt like I was kind of being transported to a different dimension. Like I often feel that way with like house and tech music, and I definitely
Hmm.
felt it with this track.
Good.
And I kind
Uh-huh.
of feel like I'm getting lost within the depth of the sound. So when you're creating a track and when you're producing music, what is your aim? And like, do you have the listener in mind, or do you kind of just let the magic flow and just let whatever be will be?
I think it depends. I think it's a thin line to walk between art and functionality, because you need both,
Mm.
especially when you're making club music, because it actually has a function, like people want to dance to it, and lose themselves in it. So I try to, like, in the initial, like, spark moment, all of that isn't on my mind at all. Like, all I'm doing in that moment is just letting out my ideas and like recording them somewhere and just like putting it all down. But then I feel like that moment lasts maybe 5 minutes or something, and then the building blocks of the song are there. And then I think it's all about just being very diligent and like just working on every single building block, like getting yourself into the nerdy stuff of
Yeah.
things and working like EQing everything, like just the stuff that's not as exciting or like
Yeah.
that people don't talk about at all. And so when I'm in that mode, I'm obviously thinking, okay, like if I make this break too long, like people are gonna leave the dance floor, or if I don't hit them with the kick here, like they're gonna, like I that's like when I start thinking about stuff like that, and then I try to kind of find a compromise. It's not, I wouldn't say a compromise, but just try to like have that also influence the direction that the song takes. But I think it's important in the beginning to free yourself from all these like preconceptions of how music is supposed to be like, or like to follow a formula, or to look at it too mathematically, or just to think about it too much. Because those songs, like I remember, like I don't do this anymore because I don't really have the time. But last year I was pitching a lot for ads, like not under my own name, but just to on the side. And when you get on like what's it called, like the can't think of the name, like the sheet where they tell you what exactly they want in that ad, like it's all very like, then we need this feeling, and then we want the viewer to feel this type of way with this visual. So everything's already very premeditated, and you just have to adjust your music to fit that framework. And that was so hard for me, because I'm like, if I start with already like having like a fixed expectation of the song, like it took me days to make the songs, and then at the end of the day they weren't even good, because I've just every note was like calculated, because you can make a whole science out of it. Like you can be like, okay, if I go up now, then theoretically the mood is going to uplift, or like if I take it slower, like the energy is going to drop. So like I think if you look at it just too scientifically, that's when things go wrong, and that's when you lose that free spirit and just the ease of making music, which I think is like almost the crux of it all. So I think a mixture is important, but in the beginning stages, definitely don't think about any of that.
I like that. You just let the magic flow through you, and then you kind of have to
Exactly.
kind of
You're
tailor
kissed
it
by
to
the magic
something
muse.
consumable.
Yes.
Now,
Make it palatable.
yes, exactly. Now to wrap this up, obviously, like you said, this year has been so hectic for you, and in the best way possible. What do you have in store for the final month of December? And is there anything exciting? I think you hinted something earlier, but is there anything exciting that you can tell us that you have ready for 2023, baby?
The big question. To be honest, in December, like my goal was just to chill and to go back to the studio.
It.
That for me is chilling. Like I can't, I don't know if you can tell, like I'm always like on there. Like I always want to do stuff. So like for me, chilling is being in the studio. But that was my plan for the whole month. I was even like, I was happy because I hadn't got like, I remember last month I looked at December and I had one gig or something. So I was like, wow, okay, so I can really be at home, be in Berlin. I also just moved into a new apartment 8 months ago, but it looks like I just moved in because I just haven't been here. So sad. So like I wanted December to be the month where I, kind of move in really, and like, but then now I've just been getting all these spontaneous gigs. So I will be back on the road. Like I'll be in Belgium, I think, and then a lot in Germany, which I'm excited for because I hardly ever play in Germany. But I think, there are a couple cool collabs definitely coming. I just released a new song on Watergate Records, which is Lima, which is a very special one for me, especially because Watergate is, like I told you, like such a integral part also of where I am right now, just career-wise, even though I hate that word. And then there's a very cool Book of Shade collab coming. I think our third one now.
Okay.
That's coming very soon. Then I am working on things with Damian, but those are probably more 2023. There are some other artists that I don't think I can name yet. I did a remix for a very cool girl, like indie artist, where I'm like, yes, woman, like girl power. And then 2023, actually, I'm doing the same thing all over again that I did this year. So I'm gonna like lock myself into a studio again for 2 months and work on album number 3 in LA this time.
I
Just
was
anywhere
literally
that's
about to
popular.
ask what location had you chosen for it? LA, there we
It's
go.
it's LA. It's Silver Lake. So the album's probably gonna be like named after the street where I make it in LA. Uh, but yeah, so that's like I'm like only here for a month now, and then it's off over there. So yeah, those are my plans. I'm really just itching to get into the studio. Like even I was home for a week like last month, I think, and I have all this creative like material inside of me that's like waiting to get let out. And I remember that week, I think I wrote like 7 songs just because I was finally back in the studio. It was just all coming out. Because like I said, like traveling, you make so many new impressions. And that's kind of my way of like processing them. So yeah, I'm just gonna try to be in the studio and make some cool new music again. And look for inspiration, also enjoy Christmas here in Germany. And those are the plans.
It sounds incredible, and I'm so excited to hear your LA-inspired album because I love LA. That's what I want to be personally.
Ooh, very controversial thing to say.
Is it? Why?
Kidding. I feel like, I was just in New York for a week. I feel like people like kick you out of the city if you say it there.
Oh, but I don't want to be in New York, so I'm fine. It's too cold.
I love both. That's the thing. But if you go in the summer, I feel like it's nice. Yeah, I feel like LA, like I love LA too. I feel like LA is like 10 different cities in one, so you can't really say, like you can't generalize.
And it's so good for
but yeah,
being
I'm
creative.
so
Like
happy
the
to
creative energy there is just like, like everyone wants to
It's all
just
about that.
be like,
Exactly.
just create and just do stuff and like make things and be
Yeah,
productive.
so many like-minded people.
Yes, exactly.
Then I have to say, like, even though like it's such a blunt thing to say, but I'm so like my mood
Same.
depends so much on the weather. And also like my creative output or even like interest in being creative. Like if it's dark outside, like in Berlin, I woke up today and it was just great.
Yeah.
I'm like, it feels like the day just never starts and I never get going. So I'm just excited to be back, in a sunny place and let that inspire me. And I already have like 6-7 songs, so the album is kind of done-ish, but I'm like maybe
holiday.
Like yeah. But like I said, holidays making music.
Well, exactly.
I always have stuff to do, so I'll be fine. Maybe I'll work on some more job videos or whatever. And I'll be playing a lot of gigs in America, which I'm happy about because I play mainly in Europe and because I'm not, obviously, like it's always such an act flying over there. So beginning of next year, I'm just gonna, I think, see a lot of North America, maybe also South America. So it's exciting.
It all sounds so exciting, and I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time and talking about you and your life. It's been so fascinating and honestly really inspiring to listen to. And I hope that, and I'm sure that anyone who's even thinking about, as a woman, or even anybody who's thinking about getting into music and they hear you speak so passionately about it, they feel even more inspired to want to get started and start producing. And
do it.
I feel like I want to start producing.
This is your sign
too.
Yes, do it.
So thank you so much.
What I always hate about interviews is that like I would have loved to ask you the same questions that you asked me, but obviously I can't. But it's like you're such a cool person. Thank you so much for doing it.
Thank you. So yeah, thank you so much. You've been amazing, and I really look forward to seeing your success explode even more next year, because I know it will.
Yes. Thank you so much. You heard it here first.
You heard it here first. Grey area, Joplyn is going to be, I'm going to say fucking huge. There we go.
Oh my God. I don't feel that bad about my shit anymore.
I thought I'd balance it out for you,
Thank you so much. Much appreciated.
You're welcome.